Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a completely random Friday night stream because I don't know. It's been a long week of lots of work and lots of different stressors and bizarre happenings and everything in life. And I don't know. Couldn't get enough of talking. I might be slightly inebriated. Just so you know, I might be slightly inebriated. It's been one of those weeks. But I hope everybody's doing okay on this Friday evening. Decided to be a little silly. Go with my Captain Marco Ramius avatar tonight. Holy cats. All right. Already, before I've even really said anything, Derek LaRue, thank you so much for your generosity and support. Really appreciate it. Even in the face of a completely random and probably not that exciting stream. I'll tell you a disclaimer ahead of time. This probably won't be that exciting. Are any of my streams exciting? I don't know. Do people find them exciting at all? Interesting, maybe? A little bit here, there, and otherwise? Either way, Derek, thank you so much. As always, appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Friday evening. And if you decide to stick around, hope you enjoyed the show. Who else is already popping in? Holy cats. Fun Time Bats, good evening to you. JB, good evening to you. Noah Asensio, good evening. Corey Suzuki, good evening. Who else is here? Roan Hirushin, good evening. Ebony Williams. Ebony, long time no see, unless you've been lurking. Nice to see you. Hope you're having a good Friday evening. The best Remy, good evening. 1 Ton Hammer, good evening. Seftus Wolf, good evening. Bishop, good evening to you. And holy cow. And then that just happened. Ostsan, thank you so much for the #1 artistic Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, there's a Sinatra Says Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Asan. And Attorney Eris, I'm still awake for some reason. Hi. Well, hi, Attorney Eris. Earl Basham. Good evening to you. Super Mutant 2099. Good evening to you. Simon Willikins. Good evening to you. Jesus Fried Christ. Good evening to you. Fast Scare Ma. Jesus Fried Christ. JFC for the KFC. So I got a couple of things I just pulled randomly for the heck of it. There's been a lot of things going on in the news the last couple of days, like, austere civil rights figure O.J. Simpson passed away. Man, have you seen some of the headlines from like outlets like the AP and NBC News being very, very, very generous to the memory of that monster? But that happened. There's apparently the oncoming possibility or likelihood of a Iranian attack on Israeli interests in some way, shape, or form in the next 24, 48, 72, 975 hours or something. People are talking about that too. But I have more important news. Something I probably should have trumpeted, so to speak, a couple of weeks back when I saw it the first time, because it's something. I hadn't expected to see this happen. Those of you who are veterans to my channel may remember a little outlet called Splinter. Splinter, which evolved from Fusion. I have a whole playlist of Splinter and Fusion videos from the olden days on my channel if you're curious about what they used to produce. But Fusion became Splinter, and then Splinter went out of business along with a whole bunch of other sites at the time. Dawn Meow 90. Good evening to you. Dixie Rose 63. Good evening as well. Hope you guys are doing well. JB says, I was watching the Fallout show so far. Pretty damn good. I've heard different things about that. I haven't watched it yet. I am a pretty big Fallout fan, although I'm more of a classic, dark, satirical, not bright and sunny Fallout 76 kind of Fallout. Fallout 2, Fallout 3, grimdark. Fallout should look like Book of Eli looks, in my opinion. So I'm not so sure about all the bright colors and overmuch humor. The humor was supposed to be there, but also be very dour and offset the sort of grimdark nature of the Fallout universe. At least that's how my mind sort of processed the original games. So I'm not quite sure about the TV show. But hey, if it's good, I'll check it out at some point. But anyway, yes, Splinter is back. Somebody bought this thing. I'm not quite sure of all the behind the scenes of it, but just for my own edification. So just as a preamble, I've got this article and then I have a video to watch. So if you're not interested if you're watching this in the future, you'll see the article going by, and then eventually I'll be switching over to a video because, reasons. Anyway, Splinter is back. Why? Why bother? In November, Paste Magazine, whatever that is, bought Jezebel and Splinter from Geo Media. And after resurrecting Jezebel, oh, thank goodness they did that, because boy, oh boy, were we all missing Jezebel, weren't we? Paste has now brought Splinter back to life. Now, my only real hope is that Splinter also brings back their YouTube channel back to life, because then, man, I tell you what, Splinter, Fusion, what was that other one? Not right now. It was something like that. There were several different little media outlets back in the olden days that I would go, that were my go-tos. The Root and Vox. Like, they used to have some great stuff to look at. And by great, I mean insane, but, entertaining. Let's see. Jacob Windling, hi, is the Splinter editor-in-chief, and the excellent Dave Leviton, who has written for Splinter and Gizmodo in the past, as well as many, many other well-known outlets. So well-known, I'm sure they're all in business, will be Splinter's deputy editor. I was a Paste Politics staff writer. I've never even heard of Paste Magazine. I've never heard of Paste Magazine. I was a Paste Politics staff writer and editor for the business and media sections at the same time that Splinter was pumping out bangers during the Trump administration. And if you read any of our articles at Paste, we know Bernie did. We have some lefty bona fides. Oh, thank God. Not Splinter level bona fides, but enough to at least get on a presidential candidate's radar. Great. You got on Bernie's radar. Boy, oh boy, I think Bernie picks up mostly chaff at this point. I also once got CNN to admit on the record that they screwed up. So you can rest easy knowing that the stewards of new Splinter have been around the block once or twice before. You got CNN to admit they screwed up, huh? Well, all right. Our goal with Splinter is to honor the efforts of those who came before us and highlight voices who can bring smart and informed perspectives about politics and the broader world of subjects that word implies. What is implied by politics? Which word are you talking about? Perspectives or politics? Or broader? Okay. If you want to learn more about what new Splinter is all about, read it when we launch tomorrow. If you want to write for us, pitch me at jacob@splinter.com. Boy, you think I could write for Splinter? What would I write for Splinter? We are not trying to reinvent the wheel here. No. The Splinter mission has not changed. We are lefties who see the world as the same degree of fucked as the folks who came before us do, and we want to honor the Gawker ethos all of OG Splinter embody. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Digital media is being choked to death by Google and Facebook's ad monopoly, and outlets like Splinter and Jezebel and so many others have paid the price for the insatiable greed of our Silicon Valley overlords and our feckless politicians and institutions who could do something to help the industry but refuse to enforce antitrust laws already on the books. Luckily, Jezebel and Splinter fell into the hands of a magazine that has existed since 2002. I've never heard of Paste Magazine. Paste may not be the biggest name in media. You're correct. But there aren't many companies that can say they've navigated the entire digital era and are still breathing, let alone thriving. Yes, there are. Google. Amazon. Yahoo's still around, isn't it? Microsoft? What? Paste has a lot of unique advantages that make it an ideal owner for these essential websites. And growth here is about sustainability, so we can build a lifeboat for writers who speak truth to power in this digital media hellscape we all call a career. Oh boy, what an endorsement. We want to champion for this... We want to be, pardon me, a champion for this kind of unvarnished and unabashed style that changed journalism for the better, but is becoming scarcer in a world increasingly dominated by a handful of major outlets. It's more important than ever to support independent media. Did you watch? I mean, admittedly, I didn't read Splinter so much as I watched Splinter. Did you watch any of Splinter's content back in the day? And I'm talking to the editor in chief here or whatever. The absolute cherry picked, redacted, crafted propaganda that was Splinter, and before it Fusion. You know what I have a copy of? And I know this must be lost media at this point. I have a copy of the Fusion panel on the night of the 2016 election. Boy, oh boy, it is something else. If you want to see absolute losing their minds paranoia as the results rolled in on Donald Trump from people who, for the most part, they had a couple of like token conservative-ish people on the panel. But man, if you ever want to see some people absolutely lose their minds in gaming out what's going to happen with Donald Trump taking over the world, boy, oh boy, the Fusion 2016 election panel. I've got a copy of it somewhere on a drive. I think it's lost media now, but I mean, maybe it's out there on YouTube, but as far as I know, Fusion shut down their channel. You can't find it anymore. It's like 8 hours long or something. It is a huge file. I suppose I could find it and like stream it sometime because I don't think Fusion's going to come after me, but who knows who owns Fusion at this point. Anyway, there's some parts in there. Oh, I could go on. So go subscribe to the OG Splinter folks over at Discourse Blog. Okay, subscribe to the Deadspin folks over at Defector. Subscribe to the Kotaku folks at Aftermath. What the hell? It's like I'm reading the worst names of like garage bands out of the 1990s. Subscribe to Jezebel. Subscribe to Splinter. The vast majority of content on Jezebel and Splinter will still be free to read, but because Google decides what words we can and cannot make money off of, spoiler, not that many, we're offering a subscription tier that gives you access to some subscriber-only content, access to our Discord-only channels for live chats during big events, some Splinter swag, and any other additional ideas we can come up with along the way to reward those who support us the most. Additionally, Paste is putting its money where its mouth is in its commitment to Splinter's collectivist values. Oh, man. Please, guys, bring back your YouTube channel. Start making video content that I can review and make videos for again. Oh, man. Please do. And sharing a significant portion of the subscription revenue with its staff. Oh, okay. You'll share it all amongst us. Okay. Splinter explicitly said it was not Gawker. Nothing else could. Thank goodness for that. But it did harness that spirit of speaking truth to power that changed the media industry forever. You talking about Gawker? Or you talking about Splinter? Calling a spade is a radical act now. Do you know where the whole spade thing came? Anyway, where the truth trademark is administered by only a few very serious outlets whose interest generally like. Okay, don't get too full of yourself there. But anyway, Splinter is back. I'm so glad. I really hope they start publishing videos again. Thank you, Alan Thyler, for the laughy, happy, smiley dog cat fox. Oh, dog. Oh, that is a tailed feature, Dog Cat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. But yeah, so Splinter's back. I'll have to keep an eye on Splinter. I'm really hoping they bring back their YouTube channel. Really, really hope. Hope beyond hope. A few more hellos here. Emperor W.R. Costin. Good evening to you. Divine Petulance. Good evening. Who else is here? Did I already say Zero the Hero 909? Link to the Fusion thing. I don't think it exists anymore on YouTube. I think it's been deleted. I think the copy that I have might be one of the only surviving copies of that broadcast. I think it may indeed be a piece of lost media. Maybe it's out there somewhere. I'd be surprised. But if it is, I mean, I can try to look for it, but I'll probably do it offline. And if I can find it, I'll tweet out a link to it. William Stinchiver. Good evening to you. Anybody else here? Oh, Beth Kaselman. Good evening. And before I move on to the wonderful world of the video I've got, Anthem Ward, good evening. I drove the world's largest truck. Stopped today. What's up? You drove the world's largest truck? You're one bad mother trucker. I don't know what else to say. Anthem Ward, bad mother trucker. And also Resolute Germ. Good evening to you. Wow, everybody's here. Holy cow. It kind of reminds me of like the first time that Ranting Monkey ever did a stream, because he was trying to figure out how to stream and he was asking me for advice, and we did a test stream. I think it might still be on his channel. And we're just testing it out to make sure he could do it. And like 75 people showed up within 2 minutes of us going live with nothing but a test stream. It was very affirming for him, I think. Oh, Bridget. Good evening to you. And Poker Pierce. Good evening. Oh my gosh, everybody's here. All right. Well, anyway, so yeah, just as a notice, Splinter is back. So hoping Splinter brings us some good stuff for the future. Now, the other thing I just randomly picked out of nowhere, I was like, hey, are there any panel discussions of interesting stuff or something to interest? Just for the sake of variety here. Yes, I've become Captain Ramius for the evening. Marco Ramius. Let's see. Which one shall I do? Shall I do Cosmic Scribe? Shall I do Psychiatrist Scribe? Well, let's go for Cosmic Scribe. It's been a while. Been a while since we've gone Cosmic. Let's see. Oh, who else is here? Oh my gosh. So many people showing up. Old Guy Gamer. Good evening. Ercole Di Stefano. Good evening. Yes, so headline number 1, Splinter is back, and hopefully either in article form or hopefully, fingers crossed, knock Formica in video form, Splinter will return. But I also have more scrambling on the DEI front, if you can believe it. A panel discussion from, I think, like a couple of weeks ago or something, where a bunch of HR professionals are going to be talking about how to survive or how to make DEI survive or something. The landscape is changing quite quickly to try to compensate for this. And there's a couple of things that I've been aware of and or alerted to in the recent past that are becoming more prevalent. One is called Bridge. You may have heard about Bridge. It is new DEI or attempted new DEI. Sort of like if you had a DEI version of white fragility, where somebody's trying to come up with a new and more intellectually ishy sounding thing for some old concept. Bridge is coming, and I might be doing a Sunday stream on that this Sunday with an accompanying video about Bridge. But we'll talk about that on Sunday. The other thing also is they're changing DEI departments in colleges. The first most prominent one was at the University of Oklahoma, where they changed it to the Office of, what was it? The Division of Access, and I already forgot what it was. Hold on a second. Let me get it right. Oklahoma Division of Access. Access and Opportunity, I think it is called now. Yes, Access and Opportunity, or Accessibility and Community or something. Anyway, they're changing their names. They're trying to hide themselves. They're changing all their job titles. They're running away from DEI because DEI is now a poison brand. Thank goodness. But all they're doing is just, you can't change the spots. It's the same thing. You shall know them by their deeds. And whatever they change their names to, their mechanisms and their goals remain the same. So we're seeing things shift very quickly in the last couple of months away from DEI. And now it's DEA, the Office of Equality and Accessibility, or Equity and Accessibility or something. So it might be DEA now, or DAE. Anyway. But either case, let's listen to a panel discussion of some HR experts talking about how to save diversity, or something. Where the future meets exec. Ooh, exec club. Ooh, gosh, this is a club. I didn't even know I have no idea what this is. All I saw was panel discussion thing, and here we go. We're at the exec club in Chicago, everybody. Hopefully that music isn't copyrighted or nothing, and I won't get in trouble for it. Let me. Let's see. Thank you for all of our Signature Series sponsors. Holy cow! Look at all that. Oh, Accenture. Oh, Accenture has a special place in my heart for the first video I ever did, presentation I ever looked at, where the speaker had absolutely no filter when talking about their diversity goals, using percentiles, really clarifying what it was about and everything else. JLL, oh my God, I think that's you know what? I think that might be the company I did the very first diversity video on my channel. Holy cow, all the big hitters are here. Man, all right. So yeah, Accenture, I think the video is called like Unfiltered Diversity or Unfiltered Inclusion or something. JLL, I think it's the first video on my diversity imperative. Might be, yeah, it could be on my diversity imperative playlist. Boy, oh boy, look at all these guys. All right, well, golly gee whiz. All right, let's get on with it.
And everything. We're so glad you're here. I'm Margaret Mueller. I'm the president and the CEO of the Executives Club of Chicago. It's my pleasure to welcome you for our program, What is the Future of Diversity in HR?
Yay, the future of diversity in HR from the Exec Club of Chicago. Now, it would make the evening complete if Chicago Mike was here. If Chicago Mike was here, and I'm talking about Chicago, it'd be great. A few more hellos here. Rib Rascal, good evening. Shio Gorath, good evening to you. I saw somebody else. Dina B, good evening, Dina B. Hope you're doing well. Boy, everybody's showing up tonight. I didn't know Friday night was such a hopping night. Maybe I should do like surprise streams on Friday nights more often. And Tony Giff, good evening to you. All right, anyway, the future of HR, DEI, what?
This incredibly important discussion is going to explore how the Supreme Court's recent decision ending affirmative action programs at universities can potentially impact corporate HR and diversity programs moving forward.
Well, here's how it's going to impact it. Here's how it's already impacting it. It's just telling everybody what everybody should have already known, that this stuff is illegal. It's always been illegal. It's always tempted fate with Title VII and or Title VI, depending, and the 14th Amendment. But only now are they just sort of having to realize that, now there's a clear, defined legal precedent. We can't lean on the spirit of affirmative action to justify ourselves anymore. No, that has been taken away from us. That one pillar was holding up the entire DEI apparatus. And now it's just a matter of time. The reason it's taking so long, this is my theory at least, for the judicial hammer to fall on this stuff more harshly, is that so much time has been given and it's become so ingrained into everyone's philosophy of justice and equity and so on and so forth, that trying to remove it would be catastrophic financially, legally, and so on for major institutions. The number of ginormous class action lawsuits that could be brought about to major companies in this country because of the obvious discriminatory practices that have been going on for years could potentially cripple huge companies and destroy smaller companies if anybody actually took the time and the effort to pursue these things. Now, of course, such things would be tied up in legalese for years, but I'm telling you, there is a DEI bubble just waiting to burst, and it's coming. Sooner or later, it's coming because there's just too much evidence there. All that they can do now is either try to hide from it, try to rescind their programs, and hope that the statute of limitations runs out before anybody takes a major swing at them, or morally double down on it, which is what a lot of places are doing. And so now, what does DEI look like for HR in the future?
While the court's decision only applies to higher ed, the ripple effects are being felt far and wide.
Yeah, it does only apply to higher ed, but the pitfalls of the entire endeavor have been there from the beginning.
And HR and DEI professionals must expand their approaches to creating diverse talent pipelines to ensure that they are meeting their workforce diversity goals.
Yeah, and also try to dodge, again, the legal traps of the entire thing. Okay, diversity goals. I hope they talk about their percentiles.
So today our panelists are going to discuss the solutions for challenges that they see facing the future of diversity in HR and how we all can think about addressing them within our own organizations.
All right, I'm ready.
Before we begin, I just want to thank all of the organizations and individuals whose support helps the Exec Club thrive.
You can thank them all you want. I want to get to the panel discussion, so we're going to jump ahead until we get to something like actually talking to the. All right, maybe she's right here.
Institute. And this institute brings together a diverse community of HR leaders to tackle conversations that impact issues around talent and organizational management.
Do you care about talent when you're talking about diversity? I'm not quite sure. When do we get to the panel? When do we get to the panel? Okay, maybe that's it. All right, here we go. Let's see. Back up just a little bit. All right.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and talent management at Adtalem Global Education. And I'm Andres Tapia, Senior Client Partner and Global DEI and ESG Strategist at Korn Ferry.
Oh, ESG and DEI. Oh, boy.
And our moderator today is Dr. Kafi Moraini Patterson, Senior Program Director of the College and Career Success at the University of Chicago's Inclusive Economy Lab. So without further ado.
Inclusive Economy Lab.
Oh, I forget about it. Sorry.
I literally have to pass it over to you. I didn't quite realize.
Oh, there you go. Always a white savior having to hand the mic to a person of color.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited about the conversation. I will just move right into questions so we can ensure we have time to ask questions from the audience. What we'll do is ask them towards the end so that if there's some flow, we can keep it going, but then we'll totally reserve at least 15 minutes to have it from the audience. So, okay, if it works for you, JT, I would love to start with you to help us think about framing this larger situation. I'm in the higher education space, but clearly, this ruling has implications for other spaces. So,
yeah, and I still have to occasionally pause just for the sake of YouTube not shutting me down for one reason or another. Yeah, the implications of the affirmative action thing. Again, this is the major problem for all the companies in the country when it comes to DEI. The driving argument that was put forth by the lawyers defending the colleges in the affirmative action case, and you can listen to this. I really do recommend, if you're really curious about this kind of thing and the totality of the thinking on DEI, really do find and listen to the oral arguments from October of 2022, I believe it is, yes, where the lawyers for the colleges argued before the Supreme Court what their defense of affirmative action was. And their defense was the argument for diversity. And at the time, it was striking to me because the things that they were saying, the arguments they were making, the defenses they put out there were so lockstep and in some cases verbatim to the stuff that I'd heard from DEI advocates and executives for years to that point, that I immediately knew that if their argument failed before the Supreme Court, DEI had no chance legally. Because if your justification for discriminating people on the basis of race in colleges falls apart because diversity does not meet constitutional rigor, then diversity doesn't meet constitutional rigor for Title VII either in the private sector. And if you can't justify it for race in colleges, well, race sits on equal footing with religion and gender and everything else under Title VII. So diversity as an argument for justifying discrimination in the hiring practices doesn't cut it anymore. Like right now, as of right now, but even before, this is the thing. People think that before the affirmative action decision, somehow DEI was, I don't know, untouchable or justified or legal. It never was. It's only now that people are starting to wake up to this fact. It's been a bizarre thing to watch, but I'm glad it's finally happening.
If you could tell us more about what the rulings mean, thinking about Harvard and the University of North Carolina broadly.
Yeah, Kafi, thanks. So the Students for Fair Admissions case.
Boy, this is really quiet, isn't it? I thought it'd be a lot louder. I thought their audio was a lot louder. Can you guys hear this okay? If the audio is so cruddy that it's not worth listening to, I'll just stop this, or I'll have to boost this at some other point and try to, because I can't unfortunately boost the audio from the browser. So let me know in the chat. Is it too quiet that it's annoying to listen to, or is it tolerable. If it's not tolerable, I don't want to, force anybody to, it's a bit quiet. Sand, Blitz Zero. Yeah. I thought their sound system was a lot better. I listened to bits and pieces just before I started, and I thought it was a louder recording. Let's give it a couple of minutes. Maybe it'll change, but if it doesn't, we can move on to something else.
Was brought by a student advocacy group challenging the admissions processes at Harvard and the University of North Carolina.
Okay, now, so you hear that? Okay, they're adjusting it. Let's hope that they keep doing that.
Specifically, what they were challenging was the fact that those universities were using race as a deciding factor in the admissions process.
Yeah.
And the Students for Fair Admissions argued that violated both Title VI of the Civil Rights Act as well as the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment.
Yes, that was the argument. Title VI and Equal Protections Clause, yes.
As most of us know in here, the Supreme Court ultimately agreed with them and held that race-based decisions were prohibited in the admissions process in higher education.
They always were. Affirmative action was just sort of early on, in the early days of the Civil Rights Act being passed, it made a little sense to give a sort of, insulatory period after the act had been passed to try to ease up on certain restrictions and things, and maybe even give some benefits to try to make up for lost time to a certain extent. Legally it didn't match, but morally, ethically, it made some sense. Having it extend for decades upon decades upon decades afterwards didn't. And so it was always legally tenuous. The Supreme Court just finally said, no, the line is drawn here. It's over with. The law actually has to mean something, or there's no point in having the law.
They did kind of give us a little bit of leeway in the fact that race or diversity could be considered when it comes to unique characteristics or things that the students would add to the university as a whole.
No. They decided that if race was part of your personal story of, achievement and so on, if it was part of a larger narrative for your application to a college, then that's fine. It just can't be that race is a factor that is used to make decisions by the admissions office, or at least not detectably. Let's be honest here. There's still going to be unspoken, unwritten rules amongst colleges that are dead set on continuing these policies and discriminating when they can, as long as they can get away with it. But yeah, they gave some leeway to the fact that if you said, hey, I immigrated here from South Africa and my family suffered under apartheid and I'm the first person to attend a 4-year college in my family's history because of XYZ. That's talking about race and racism, but it's not a deciding factor in and of itself. It's part of your personal story. That, the court said, is completely permissible. It's a matter of using race as a decision point that the colleges cannot do. And yeah, so.
Perfect. Andres and Katrina, I would love your thoughts. We've talked a little bit about the university aspect, but how are you seeing that have implications for corporations, organizations that are likely represented here in the room?
Yeah, so hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm very happy to be here and have this conversation. It's definitely a fluid discussion. As we know, it's ever evolving. What I would say is, as we've seen the pendulum swing post George Floyd, right?
Post, of course. How could we avoid George Floyd? Post George Floyd. Okay. And Keeverdam, thank you so much for providing the links to the GoFundMes. Everybody, say hi to Keeverdam, the mama bear of the chat. If you take a look at the top of the chat box, up there are the GoFundMes for our friends Moonshock, Natalie, Angela Ariaga, James Colley, and Rhonda. If you can take a look at those. If you can donate, please do so. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can, share those out on social media. That would be appreciated. And thank you again, Keeverdam, for providing those. Blah, blah, blah. Den Mother. Did I say, I was trying to, here's the thing. I am slightly inebriated. Okay. So I'm not quite thinking as clearly as I might have otherwise. So I said Mama Bear, Okay, I meant den mother. 6 of one thing, half a dozen of the other. So, also, Man Squatch. Good evening. I escaped apartheid. It says here you're born in South Chicago. Okay, I mean I escaped apartment 9. I'll take that. Let's hope they turn up the volume on their microphones a bit more. Good gravy. I mean, this lady, she sounds pretty clear compared to the others, but man, they need to turn it. And we know that they can because we've heard it spike a couple of times.
It's kind of similar to COVID. I liken it to, when we were going through COVID, we saw people showing up at grocery stores with ski masks and all types of scuba diving equipment, right?
Uh-huh.
That was also what happened within organizations post George Floyd. We saw so many performative efforts.
Performative efforts already denigrating all the money, millions and millions and millions of dollars spent. Admittedly, it is performative. It really was. I mean, George Floyd was used, and the pandemic was used as an excuse to push DEI philosophies and initiatives, but all the same.
We saw so many organizations jumping on the bandwagon without the proper infrastructure. And so what we're starting to see now is that the pendulum is swinging back. But the issue is that, and this is what I'm finding, I know that we've had this conversation, is that until DEI becomes a sustainable function within the organization, then we'll continue to see this reactionary effort.
DEI is never a sustainable function because it provides absolutely no bottom line benefit to companies. Every time they've tried to use a report from McKinsey and Company or something to justify their efforts, it's turned out to be nonsense. Company after company, institution after institution, even before the affirmative action decision, was cutting the budgets of their DEI departments because it was not bringing a return on that investment. Millions of dollars being spent, giant salaries for DEI executives and so on. And how is it improving the bottom line? Not at all. And in fact, you were seeing things go down because once you start making decisions based on aesthetics instead of talent, what is the inevitable result of your output and quality? It goes down. But it just took them, years and years to realize this. They just still don't want to admit it because the purse strings on ESG are still held by the big, big investment companies.
So we now saw the reactionary effort post George Floyd, where it was just all, humming grapes. Now we're seeing this reaction post affirmative action ruling, where it's now dismantling of the function. And so what we'll start to see now, and again, it's still ever evolving, and we're still looking through the data and what's going to happen specifically within my organization, which is at Talent. I don't know if you are familiar with it, but we are the parent company for 5 different institutions: Chamberlain University, Walden University, Ross Med and Vet, and then the University of the Caribbean.
Great. That's great. Are you going to talk about the obvious legal peril that the affirmative action decision has put basic DEI efforts into? I mean, are you going to at least acknowledge what the affirmative action decision means legally for DEI efforts placed up against Title VII, or any of you on the stage, I should say, rhetorically speaking, that might accept government contracts or any kind of federal assistance, how that affects you directly?
We produce the most Black physicians in the U.S.
You produce the most Black physicians in the... Oh, thank goodness. I'm glad that you produce the most Black physicians in the U.S. I was hoping you produced the most talented and well-educated physicians in the U.S. But hey, whatever your priority is, you go with you.
And we also have a majority of our student population is people of color. So
oh, thank goodness for that too. You want to say anything about, I don't know, academic ability, scholarship, talent, merit? No? Okay.
We kind of live and breathe in this equity space.
Hey, Chicago Mike's here. All right. Well, hey, now we can begin because Chicago Mike, this panel discussion is taking place at the Exec Club in Chicago. I was just saying a couple of minutes ago, I was like, and make this perfect and complete the night if Chicago Mike was here. And here you are. I wonder if I can manifest anybody else if I just say their name. Ranting Monkey. It would be great if Ranting Monkey just showed up out of nowhere. I'm going to concentrate and try to summon Ranting Monkey. No, nothing. Maybe.
Wowie, wow, wow.
Oh, he's on Twitch? Oh, that gaming lazy bum. Whatever, he's on Twitch. He's too good for YouTube. He's not on Twitch. Good for him. He's probably playing his cooking stream or fighting zombies or whatever he's doing right now. Fine. Whatever. Never mind.
Equity and education equity. And it's important for us within my organization, not only to align ourselves to our mission, but also to just stay the course. And so this is something that we're continuing to see in the space, and we're going to continue to watch it.
Yeah, stay the course, just like the Titanic. Just keep on heading forward. It's fine. I'm sure there's nothing out there.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I studied history and political science in school, and then went to journalism, and now I do this consulting work.
I didn't know that because I have no idea who you are, and you're probably not that important to me. Let's see, who else is Squizzles McCornish? Good evening. Red Feather 1. Good evening. Let's see, who else is here? Anybody else? Bold Sign. Did I already say hello? If I didn't, hello. Boy, all sorts of people are showing up. Well, hello, everyone. Are you all bored and lonely on a Friday night just like me? Well, welcome to the club. Oh, and Mr. E. Mr. E is here. Let me get him. I bet Monkey is asleep. Right? I hope so. 9 times out of 10, he needs his rest. So, Poker Pierce over Ranting Monkey. Thank you, Poker Pierce. Yes, it is truly a better show here with Poker Pierce than without Poker Pierce. Thank you, Poker Pierce. Appreciate it. Mansquatch. I'm eating the lasagna I spent last 5 hours cooking, and it's glorious. Is your real name Garfield by any chance? Also, Antiller the Mad. Good evening. I hope you're not too mad. Is that that's a Muppet on a bison, isn't it? I think that's a Muppet face on a bison. Do I have that right? Or do my eyes deceive me? They could deceive me. Anyway, you were saying you're really interesting by being a political science major in college or something?
And, Ta-Nehisi Coates, the brilliant writer, modern writer.
Ta-Nehisi Coates, brilliant writer? Yeah. How's his Black Superman film project with J.J. Abrams going?
He has a book talking about the power of the Obama years.
Oh, yeah.
And not being surprised that there was a huge backlash right after he got elected.
Yeah, there's a huge backlash whenever any president gets elected, usually from the opposing side that lost. It wasn't unique to Obama. I don't know if you noticed something that happened after 2016 or anything that's happened after 2020. Justified or not, every presidential election results in some kind of backlash, especially in the last 20 years.
He compares it historically to the end of slavery and the Civil War.
The backlash to Obama is on the level of slavery and the Civil War. Really? Really? The first black president ending up in office, heralded into position by a vast majority of white Americans, is on par with... Okay.
And the more or less 8 years of Reconstruction, followed by Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan. So, if you look at the macro history of this country, as disturbing as this current backlash is, if you think about it historically, it is predictable.
Wait. All right, so wait. Am I getting this right here? All right, so Ta-Nehisi Coates says that the backlash to Obama's election was on par with slavery and the Civil War. And now, if I'm not mishearing our speaker, he's comparing the backlash to DEI on the same level as not only the backlash to Obama, but then by extension, the backlash of slavery and the... Get over yourself.
So, in no coincidence, not only backlash to the Obama years, we saw it with Trump, but then backlash to the George Floyd response, And now we're seeing it with these kinds of actions. So we can take a step back, take a breath, and say that, all right, this is awful, and it is, and it's existentially a threat. But other things have happened that are existential threats too, and there is a rhythm to this. And the question is then, how do we deal with the backlash?
I don't know. How do you deal with the backlash to DEI?
You know, and many years later, we had the civil rights movement and all that means.
The civil rights movement and all that means? Okay, I'll give you some meaning to the civil rights movement. Title VII. Title VI. You know, that thing that affirmative action was violating the entire time. All that means. Okay, well, let's talk about what the civil rights movement meant. And how does that square with DEI philosophy? Tell me, oh, tell me true.
You know, many years later, we had Barack Obama and all that means. So now what?
Barack Obama and all that means? Okay, what does that mean? What
is the future that we're going to create together as we battle the reactionary forces against the things that we believe in? And to your point, there's some flaws. There have been some flaws in the D&I field.
You don't say. There have been some flaws? What kind of flaws? What admission will he make? We'll find out in a moment. But first, Mr. Tickletrunk, good evening to you, and thank you so much. Steel Manning, they think DEI is anti-racist. Of course, DEI is anti-racist. Because anti-racism says that racism is a universal constant. It is embedded in all things at all times, and specifically against anybody who isn't white. And DEI is there to right the scales mechanically and artificially towards a correct end. So, of course, anti-racism, DEI, DAE, JEDI, DEIB, on and on. It's all part of the same system that's going to save us from ourselves, everyone. Yeah.
Some vulnerabilities that we let go, that we didn't intend to, that some people raised the flags on and said, this is a vulnerability, this is not sustainable. As a field, we did not pay attention to it. So when the challenge came with bad intentions, but it pointed out some weaknesses that are ours to own and ours to deal with. So I think we have an opportunity to not only defend against the attacks, which are very real, but also an opportunity to reinvent, and looking forward to having that conversation this afternoon.
Okay, please confess to the weaknesses. What were the weaknesses that were pointed out with bad intent? Bad intent. You mean the elements of the Civil Rights Act that violated the law with with affirmative action that we're now, the entire reason you're having this conversation, the premise of this entire thing was the affirmative action decision, right? Which came about because of Title VI from the Civil Rights Act, which was brought about by the Civil Rights Movement. Bad intention. What, eliminating unfair racial bias in education? What's the bad intention? If you find racial bias in education as a good thing, what side of history are you on exactly?
Thank you so much, Andres. Sort of picking up from the idea of reinventing and sort of forging forward, can you just talk broadly about even the value? I think maybe we take it for granted, but some people need to be told the value of a diverse workforce to begin with. Would love your thoughts. I know you've got deep work in there.
Yeah, what exactly is the value of skin color? And for those of you who are artists, when I say the term value, you know, long ago, I had an ex-girlfriend who was an artist. I seem to find myself with artists all the time. Anyway, she was drawing a picture of something, and I said something to the effect of, I really like the shading on that. And she gave me the dirtiest look, and she said, it's called value. I'm like, oh, sorry. So I've never forgotten that. So I don't call it shading anymore. I call it value.
Yeah, and I think this is a good moment to start talking about the paradigm shift that we got to do.
Okay.
All of us here, and I have to assume pretty much everybody here,
yeah,
if we're here for diversity, inclusion, and equity,
Uh-huh.
there's something very deep inside of us that has to do with the right thing, equality, social justice, right?
Right. Yeah. Total and absolute ethical hypocrisy. Uh-huh.
And I would be, among the people standing up and say, what drives me every day in my corporate job is fundamentally the need and desire to be part of social justice in our world. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement of your intentions, motivations, or outcomes of whatever you're doing, but if you say so, I'll take the confession.
However, one of the flaws in corporate D&I, and I'm just talking corporate right now,
Mm-hmm.
is that we base the work on social justice.
You're correct. You're correct. You base the work on social justice. Uh-huh. So how are you going to correct for that?
You with me?
Yes.
I'm driven by it. You're driven by it.
Uh-huh.
But in a corporation, corporations are not about social justice. Some
Are you sure about that? Because I have several video essays going back several years that declare otherwise, but okay.
rise to that. But in the end, what is a corporation about? It's about a commercial impact, which is financial.
Yes, a corporation is about profits. And if DEI does not increase profits, why maintain DEI?
And let me give you a metaphor.
Okay.
I grew up in Lima, Peru. I worked there.
Mm-hmm.
I earn my paycheck. I earn in soles, the currency, soles.
Uh-huh.
I take a flight, Lima, Miami, Chicago. I get off at the plane and I want to get a Starbucks. And I pull out my soles and they say, what's that? We can't accept it. I can't give you your, espresso.
They don't accept the national. Wait, did I just mishear something? They don't accept the national currency at the Starbucks, or was he did I miss something? I am slightly inebriated.
I had to go to currency exchange
Uh-huh.
and take those soles that have value that I created,
Uh-huh.
but I turn it into something that I can transact with in the new economy. And I turn it into dollars and I go get my espresso.
Uh-huh. And
But that espresso has value based on what I earned in soles.
yeah, but it's a translation of one to the. It's fungible. Do you know the term fungible?
So how do we get comfortable with what I just said, that we cannot base D&I in corporate America on the basis of social justice when we do the work, not our motivation, but doing the work?
What?
We have to convert our social justice capital into a financial mindset capital and use the transaction of commercialization and then start making the case. The D&I, as much as many of us believe is the right thing to do with social justice, it is also a commercially powerful thing.
Well, it is commercially powerful in the sense of degrading the commercial value of businesses and product. I mean, I'll grant you that. If you're just saying it's a commercially powerful thing, it is. It's damaging the commercial viability of the businesses that practice it. But your analogy is absolute garbage.
That's how you get a sustainable conversation in corporate America.
Really?
And what is the evidence?
I don't know. What is the evidence? Show me, and I've been asking for this for 7 years. Show me the evidence that company X, who decided to implement a DEI policy, can draw a straight line from the moment they instituted their DEI policy to increased corporate profits, and it's as a result directly from their DEI policies. Show me that evidence. I have yet to see it. McKinsey has put out study after study, quote unquote, for years saying that they have proof of this. And yet somehow companies keep cutting their DEI budgets. If it's such an instantaneous moneymaker, why do they do that?
More diverse and inclusive organizations, are 33% more financially profitable than those that are not.
Really? Okay. Where did you get please do tell me you got this from a McKinsey study. The ones that have been effectively debunked at this point. Please tell me that's McKinsey numbers. But okay, let's say you're right. let's say that simply populating your workforce with the correct look increases profits immediately. That's all it is, right? There is a price, there is a bounty, a corporate benefit to skin color. Okay. Even if that were true, which it's not, but let's say that that was true, is that really the argument you want to be standing on while also mentioning Barack Obama, Civil War, slavery, and the civil rights movement at the same time? Is that really where you want to be? Let's see over here. Oh, Ostsan, Scribelight. I posted about another company that did a study showing the McKinsey studies were bunk. McKinsey had to make a statement that agreed that their studies weren't good. Yeah. Now, every time that I've heard somebody in one of these panel discussions over the last 7 years bring up McKinsey, and I've looked at McKinsey studies several times, and it all just feels, I mean, admittedly, I'm not a professional statistician. So looking at those things, sometimes it just overwhelms you with gobbledygook and everything else, but it just functionally does not make any sense to me. You know, if you have a more diverse workforce, you have more innovation, you have more profit, you have this, that, and the other. I'm like, how do you draw that line? I mean, if you take away all the fluff and all of the pablum from it, it's like simply having a workforce that visibly looks like XYZ equals profits, equals innovation. Trying to tie quality of thought or quality of imagination to skin color or gender or anything else, you want to talk about slippery slope territory. But yeah, no, that stuff has never convinced me. And I've never seen anybody again just said, well, you know, we were operating at this, and then we instituted our DEI program and we populated our workforce with people that looked a certain way, and all of a sudden all of our profits went up and they sustained themselves and the quality of our product went up. And we can draw a straight line from one to the other. Never seen it done. Still haven't, but here we are. Again, this panel discussion took place this year. This isn't from like 6 or 7 years ago. This is this year. They're still scrambling and struggling to justify the nonsense that they have built their entire careers on. In a way, it's kind of sad. In another way, it's also hilarious.
Right? And when it comes to women, it's 15% more profitable McKinsey study.
I knew it! I knew it! McKinsey, he said it! Oh my God! Oh, that's great! That's great! Where did you get those numbers? McKinsey! So our speaker is basing his entire justification for his philosophy, his career, everything that he's saying on a set of reports in a company that has spewed out DEI nonsense propaganda for the last 10 years. Good job.
Right. Companies that are more diversity inclusive make better decision-making on an ongoing basis.
According to McKinsey.
50% of the time is Korn Ferry study. You know,
the Korn Ferry stuff. I got to start looking up who's Korn Ferry. I don't think I've heard of Korn Ferry before, or at least not as prominently as McKinsey. Okay, I'm sure the Korn Ferry study is on par with McKinsey. I'll say they're at least second to none.
Center for Talent Innovation, companies that are more diverse and inclusive have 75% more chance of turning innovative ideas into productized products that got there in the marketplace.
Really? Then why are you guys having this meeting? Why are you struggling? Why are you having to argue this? If it was as basic and as plain as that, why is there backlash? Because I'll tell you what, profit will overtake ethics any day of the week. So if DEI were actually that profitable, if it was actually that clearly a gold mine, then what are you guys doing here? Why, after all these years, are you still trying to make these arguments? If it was so obvious, if just adding women to the board of directors or making sure that not enough white people show up in your corporate meetings and things was enough to increase profits up through the roof and everything else, then why are you here? What's the problem? Why are you struggling? Why is there a backlash in the first place?
Marketplace growth, profitability, new markets, innovation, creativity, and talent optimization. that is the currency that a corporate leader is going to pay attention to. So come back to what happened. If we base it on social justice, while the economy is good and the politics are friendly to this conversation, corporations are happy to be part of that.
You're right. If corporations can mask and ignore and rationalize away all of the problems inherent to DEI with a good economy and friendly politics, yeah, they'll keep doing it, which is exactly what they've been doing for years. Because DEI has been the Puxatawny Phil of the entire thing. DEI sticks its head out of the hole and looks around and is waiting to see its shadow. And by its shadow, I mean actual consequence for their actions. But there hasn't been, because the political climate from the Obama years has been very, very, very friendly to DEI. Very friendly. It looked the other way. And as a consequence, DEI thrived because there was no negative consequences. The EEOC was not descending upon these companies that were making demonstrably illegal actions in their hiring decisions. And so, what do you end up with? You end up with moral hazard. You end up with an entire infrastructure, a philosophy around this that just acts badly, but doesn't get its wrists slapped even. And so they don't think they're doing anything wrong. They're doing something good. They're doing something moral, right? It's diversity, it's equity, it's inclusion, it's all positive words. It must be good. And nobody's telling them otherwise. And you have it being endorsed by celebrities and politicians, and major companies are trumpeting all of their, extolling the virtues of all their DEI programs. And there's no downside. Until a big cold bucket of water was dumped on everybody, with the Supreme Court finally saying, no, this doesn't work. This is not legal. And suddenly everybody's scrambling. It's kind of like the housing crisis, right? It's kind of like the sudden realization that 1 and 1 don't equal 2 anymore. And all those home loans are actually garbage, underpinning garbage investments. That's kind of what we're dealing with here.
Economy dips was one of the first programs to get cut. It's diversity because it's based not on the currency, it's based on a foreign currency, if you will, that then when they have to triage, they're not going to prioritize it.
You're right. It's not. You're exactly right. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has no return on investment. You have absolutely no legs to stand on in justifying its existence in a company when it does not show a profit. Why would they cut the budgets of DEI if, as you say, it was so obviously beneficial to the bottom line? If innovation and profits and imagination and quality and everything else was just a 1-for-1 increase on a DEI budget, then why do they cut it? Why? Are you not listening to yourself? You have all the McKinsey studies. McKinsey couldn't be wrong, could they?
And so that has happened up and down with the economy. And now you add a political backlash. And now that becomes, corporations don't like controversy, especially when it's about something that really is not their core product and service. They're like, well, I believe in that, but that's not what we're in the business for. That's not what our shareholders are going to come to. That's not what we're producing. So they're going to back off very quickly. And that means that we did not put diversity and inclusion on a sustainable ground. We put it on a sand, foundation of sand in the corporation. What is the foundation of stone in the corporation? It's a commercial argument. We have to make that argument, and the argument is powerful.
No. Okay. There's something you're not mentioning. You got the commercial argument, you got the political argument, you got the economic argument. What about the legal argument? What predicated this entire panel discussion about the affirmative action decision? When are you going to talk about the obvious legal implications from the affirmative action decision? The first guy summarized it, right? The first guy summarized what happened in that decision, but yet nobody is talking about the implications from that decision on the entire DEI apparatus. When do we get to that part?
Thank you. Sort of building from that, like, let's just get specific. Like for companies or, institutions of higher education, for example, in my space, Brown is doing some really creative stuff about doubling down on their commitment.
Oh, really? Creative stuff on doubling down on their commitment despite the affirmative action decision? I'd love to know. Are they using California as the model since they've had since affirmative action has been illegal there since 1996?
What have you seen organizations do legally, creatively, proactively to sort of acknowledge that this is on the horizon? I'd love if each of you sort of thought about that.
Yes. What have companies been doing to try to dodge the inevitable downfall of their philosophies?
Well, I think to Andrea's point, thank you for that. That was very enlightening. What I look at in this space is that there's actually hasn't been a whole lot of the creativity that happens around DEI.
What?
And what I've also found is that the focus always tends to be on, we have to hire more people, we have to recruit more people of color, we have to recruit more, women, more those that are disadvantaged, right?
Right. That's the entire thrust and mechanism of DEI, whether you want to admit to it or not.
And what hasn't been really talked about so much is really around internally, like really focusing truly before you even go out to the market with your EVP, before you even go out to, talk to the marketing organization about what's going to happen externally within your organization. Really take a bird's eye view and even a very close view in terms of what does your organization value?
What does your organization value? Aesthetics. If you're operating under a DEI philosophy, it's aesthetics.
What are the key behaviors?
Key behaviors, rampant discrimination.
I sit within DEI and talent management, so I get to see both the DEI angle, but also how do we execute on DEI? And that's through talent management, typically. Those processes, those practices, those policies that we put in place.
It's interesting that DEI and talent management are two separate entities, isn't it?
And again, when I've talked to my peers, we've all had conversations around, well, our organization wants to hire more people. And again, that is just not the focus. So really the creativity is about really looking inside out versus outside in.
You're saying absolutely nothing. Nothing of what you're saying makes any sense. This is just total sophistry pablum.
In terms of what is your organization, going back to the why. Like I talked about before, with the things that have happened externally, with the performative measures that have been put in place.
You mean a bunch of companies dedicating a bunch of money in the immediate aftermath of George Floyd towards DEI programs, and then once they realized there was no return on investment and it started looking lousy, they pulled back, that kind of thing?
Yes. Okay. Take those down. Let's actually go back to the drawing board and be honest about it. Be transparent. We're really looking inside our organization to ensure that when those people do come, when we do recruit, when we do have the bench, when we do have the folks that are in place, that they can stay, that we retain them, that we develop them, that we support them, that we put the mechanisms in place that can really put forth that success that we need to see across representation, but also culturally.
Nothing. That was a whole lot of nothing. And that right there, that is what DEI is built on. Babble. Nonsense babble.
Yeah, and I echo that. And a lot of the companies that we work with on a day-to-day basis, I mean, after this decision came out, they really felt like they're in between a rock and a hard place. Fostering their DEI programs, but at the same time avoiding those lawsuits and things that were being threatened every day in the news.
Did it ever occur to them that they were operating in an entirely illegal fashion this entire time? At all? Did it even occur to them that they've been violating the law in any way, shape, or form the entire time?
We've worked on some creative legal solutions as far as, from a recruitment standpoint, getting rid of some of the, measures or goals or not advertising those as much,
yeah. Let's not publicly confess that we have any percentile quotas, guys. Okay, because really, of all the things we could say about our DEI initiatives, the one thing that is patently and unarguably illegal are racial or gender quotas in hiring. So let's just not mention those anymore, shall we? Okay, so our speaker's first confession here, first adaptation after the affirmative action decision, is to hide your illegal behavior.
As they say, what gets measured gets, what gets paid gets measured. So,
Jesus.
So doing away with that and really focusing on kind of like, contrary to what you're saying, on going out into the market and getting as big as pool as they can of candidates, of where are you getting your applicants from?
Yeah, no, yeah. The safest part of the talent pipeline for DEI is at the recruitment phase, right? It really comes down to when you make a decision on who to hire that you start wading into legal peril. So if you only, just as an example, I brought this up before, if you have a job open at your company and you want to, meet your aesthetic DEI goals without actually saying that's what you're doing, what you do is you advertise that job only in institutions and to places where you're more likely than not to find people within the demographics you want, right? So if you're looking to increase your people of color quotient in your company, well, if you only advertise your job or you play it up at historically black colleges and universities, chances are the percentage of people that will show up to apply for the job will just happen to be from the visible demographics that you're looking for. All right. And so the odds are high that whoever you end up hiring from the talent pool you're targeting, based exclusively on the demographic they fall into, then you'll end up with your hire in that demographic, and you'll have hidden your discriminatory practices at the very front end. The frontest end of the process is where it's safest, the furthest away from the actual decision to hire. That's as safe a territory as you can go. And so let's see if he mentions historically black colleges and universities.
Diverse organizations, HBCUs.
Just, oh. Oh gosh, I've been doing this too long. I have been doing this way too long.
And other, resources along those lines to increase that pool. Looking
yep.
at, recruitment as a funnel, right?
Yes.
You want to focus on the top of the funnel to get the largest pool of the most diverse applicants.
Right, the most diverse, and by diverse we mean the specific demographics that we targeted. That's not diverse. That's not diverse. You're being very, very selective. Listen to the double speak.
And then you as you go down that funnel, you make sure you're avoiding the decisions based on race.
You've already made the decision. You just said it. You made your decision based on race at the front end of the process. Give me a... No. God, this is...
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
Just listen to the cognitive dissonance here. This guy thinks he has just completely cleansed himself of any wrongdoing. Oh, no. Just make sure you're not having any, racial decisions. And where were you putting your talent pool search in the first place? HBCUs, you said. Oh, okay. And what does HBCU stand for again? Shut up. Give me a break.
Based on, any other protected category to avoid those legal challenges, but the pool you're bringing in kind of gives you that opportunity really reflect the community that you're in, whether it's here in Chicago or in Wisconsin or wherever else in the country you are.
Exactly what I said. Okay. All you're doing is increasing the likelihood that whoever you choose for the job from the people you actually advertise the job to, more likely than not, is going to come from a demographic that you prefer over another. It's not about diversity. It's not about an equal opportunity, right? It's about having a captive demographic audience for the job opening and just betting high on the odds. That's all it is. Boy, oh boy, this ticks me off. This guy trying to weasel his way around the reality of what he is saying and make it sound like it's legally acceptable, or somehow it's just slightly less legally questionable. He's promoting discrimination, hiring discrimination. He's just made sure, and is advising other people to do, that they push it as far away from themselves as they can at the earliest point of the process. The first filter is way out at the beginning, and that distance will make the heart grow fonder. Let's see. Rib Rascal, thank you so much. Do the work. Well, I mean, it's not about doing the work. It's about being a jerk. It's not about doing the work. It's about being a jerk and then trying to rationalize it away as something that's reasonable and righteous or something.
And similarly, from an internal standpoint to the programs you mentioned, what we've seen a lot of our clients doing lately is instead of having exclusive groups within the organization, you open it up to everybody to join and be a member, with maybe subsets of groups within that can focus on diverse candidates, women, and other minority groups.
See how difficult it is for you to avoid categorizing people on the basis of protected groups and making decisions about hiring and employment and everything else when you're saying don't do that, and yet you have to do that to achieve the goals of DEI. And are you talking about ERGs? I hope you're talking about ERGs. Let's bring up some ERGs. Let's talk about employee resource groups. I love those. Thank you, Kieverdam, for the common greater public good, for the greater good, the greater good. I used to have that clip. I need to get that back again to play that occasionally. Thank you, Kieverdam. Okay, how long have I been going on now? Hour and 17. Okay, we can go a little bit longer. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take a brief intermission because, I'm slightly inebriated, and something happens biologically when that happens. So, brief intermission. I'll be back in a moment. And we're back. Hello, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the piano interlude. I feel better now. Yeah, I still don't know if playing the piano over my audio will not just make me sound all like muffled and watery or something. I'd love to have some background music, but I just don't trust that it's going to work. So, anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, our first speaker was trying to justify his career and everything in the face of rampant hypocrisy.
In subsets of those larger groups where everybody's a member and everybody can participate, and it doesn't look like you're singling out any specific group to get.
yeah. ERGs never look like they're singling out any specific group. You mean demographic, except that's exactly what they do. So open them up to everybody. You mean like a non-discriminatory, egalitarian sort of professional development kind of setup instead of an ERG that bases everything around race or ethnicity or personal lifestyle choices in the bedroom, that kind of thing.
And other minority groups in subsets of those larger groups where everybody's a member and everybody can participate, and it doesn't look like you're singling out any specific group to get to the decision-making process that the Supreme Court was not a fan of in the Students for Fair Housing.
Yeah, the Supreme Court was not a fan of, or in put another way, the Constitution did not allow.
Yeah, and one thing that we're also recommending is that, what is employee value proposition?
What is employee value proposition? Well, presumably that the employee brings value to the company through their skills, education, experience, and professional development. Admittedly, I am not a business major. I'm a lowly English major, so I'm just extrapolating here and speculating. But okay, what is your sense of the employee value proposition?
Come to work for us and we'll help you develop to the greatest of your potential, right? Great.
Maybe, or just, fill the job responsibilities that you're applying for, something like that.
Sounds good. And
why are you all laughing? Why? I mean, it sounds very basic, but why is that? Is that a punchline?
I think if that's the promise, then it's fair for companies to then hold themselves accountable whether they're delivering on that promise. In the same way that they make a promise about financial returns to the street, and then they measure if they're fulfilling those promises and whether they achieve them. So this should be no different. But employee value propositions for everybody of every background, widen the talent pool as much as possible. Great argument.
No. He didn't talk about widening the talent pool. He talked about targeting specific institutions that would have, more likely than not, individuals from the demographics that are desired for hiring. Either you didn't listen to what he said, or you're actively just waving away what he said.
But then hold yourself accountable to whether you are fulfilling that promise, that you are helping people rise to the fullness of their potential. You do a diagnostic, you do an sort of an impact equity analysis, and let's see what the results say.
Full potential. How do you measure someone's full potential? Yeah, and I'm being facetious when I ask that. I'm just like, I've talked about this before. I have the potential of writing the next great American novel, right? I mean, it's not impossible. If I actually put my mind to it, if I put the effort in, if I had the passion, the idea, and so forth, I could conceivably write a successful novel. Will I write a successful novel? I don't know. I have every potential to be a Formula One racer. I mean, I don't own a car. I don't really like driving, but I mean, I can drive. But how do you measure someone's full potential? And how do you know if you've reached it? And is it the responsibility of the company to craft individuals into their full potential, whatever that means? What are you talking about?
And I can guarantee you that people of color and women will be disproportionately less able to show and prove that they are rising to the fullness of potential. And the companies that then made the promise can be held accountable, say, whatever that group is, and it's going to be a mixture of people who are from the majority, but disproportionately people of color,
Am I hearing this correctly? Women and people of color are not going to reach their full potential because they're women and people of color? Wait, what? Okay, hold on. I'm backing up. I'm backing up a second here.
Bonus of the potential. You do a diagnostic, you do an, sort of an impact equity analysis, and let's see what the results say. And I can guarantee you that people of color and women will be disproportionately less able to show and prove that they are rising to fullness of potential.
They will, just inevitably. Why is that exactly?
And the companies that then made the promise can be held accountable, say, whatever that group is, and it's going to be a mixture of people who are from the majority.
The majority. Okay, you just can't say white people? I'm looking over at Baldy on the end there. I guess he's part of the majority, right? But of course, our speaker is also part of the majority, because if we're just going off of skin color, he looks pretty pale to me.
But disproportionately people of color, what are you going to do to help them rise?
What are you going to do to help them rise? Because they so obviously need help. They so obviously are what? Damaged or incapable of rising to the top. What are you talking about?
To the fullness of the potential.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. I think, HBCU partnerships, HSIs, professional organizations, those are table stakes in DEI. If you haven't already assumed yourself or asserted yourself and partnered with these organizations, that's something that you already should be doing, right?
Right. Yeah, you have to partner with specific organizations that focus on either Black people or Hispanic people specifically, because we're not trying to discriminate on the basis of race. We're just focusing on organizations that are racial centric. That's all.
Right. So when we think beyond expanding of the talent pool, again going back to my previous point, I'm not arguing that.
You had a point before?
It isn't important to expand your talent pool. I think that's very important.
Oh.
But we just saw several weeks ago the public ousting of Dr. Claudine Gay.
Oh. Yeah, the public ousting of a rampant plagiarist and liar, you mean? Oh, boy. This is the second time that Claudine Gay has come up in a stream of mine in the last week or two. Really? The public ousting of Claudine, on the basis of what?
We saw another member of the Black community, Antoinette Candia Bailey, who also unfortunately committed suicide. These are two prominent Black women.
I don't even know. I don't have a reference for that second one. But Claudine Gay was ousted because she was a plagiarist and a liar. Okay. Chicago Mike, thank you so much. Is it me or the real racist, the people in this panel? It is incredible the amount of self-delusion and cognitive dissonance that is necessary to sit up on a panel, position yourself and comport yourself as a professional in the HR space and DEI, and say things like, oh, we want to not be discriminatory and everything else, but also let's focus on these specific racial and or gender demographics in our hiring practices. I mean, it's impressive. It really causes me to wonder, as it has for years now, how people who operate in this space and in this way move through the world and constantly having to balance this disconnect in what they're saying and what they're doing versus what they say they mean to do. It's something else. Thank you, Chicago Mike.
In higher ed, they did not have the infrastructure, did not have the support, did not have the things that the mechanisms put in place, as I've been talking about, to assume their roles and to be successful. So if we don't have that, then everything that we're talking about is for naught. So it's really important, again, as an organization, and that's the reason it's probably different than what we're used to, because it is about how do we continue to expand and evolve, etc. But really being real and honest and transparent with not only yourself as a DEI leader, because for me, going through this space is very emotional, right?
You guys have not evolved. That's the problem. You haven't evolved. Everything you're saying right now is everything I've been hearing for the last 7 years. There's no evolution because the goal remains the same. And the only mechanisms to achieve that goal are the same. If you want your workforce to look a particular way, then you have to discriminate on the basis of aesthetics, period. That's it. And you guys have just been doubling down on that this entire talk. You haven't been talking about actual diversity. You haven't been talking about diversity of thought, diversity of talent, education, skill set, or anything else. You've only focused on aesthetics. You've brought up women and minorities. You've talked about skin colors and ethnicities. That's it. You're not talking about diversity of education or skill. Every single time you guys open your mouths on this subject, do I hear anything about diversity of skill set, diversity of thought? No. It always resolves back down to aesthetics. And you will never, ever escape that. As long as you promote diversity, you'll never escape it. And it's the same arguments. It's the same BS that's been going on for the last 7 to 10 years. Evolving. No. The only thing that's evolving is the futile attempts to try to cover up what you're actually doing to avoid any legal liability. But the problem is you can't. You can't avoid it because the goals remain the same. You can change all the titles you want and all the different words and things. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea is obviously that thing because the words say it is. But the truth remains at the core, you guys are still operating as a discriminatory function in businesses, an illegal discriminatory function in businesses. You'll never escape it.
Oftentimes we take this what has happened in the public space, in the government space, or political space rather, very personally. So you have to really take an inner look, not only at you as leading this work, you as being a team of this work, an advocate of this work, but also within your organization. So another reason why I think it's so important to really focus inward. We did see those two very public things that happened.
Okay, the Claudine Gay thing, yeah, okay, let's just ignore the fact that she was a liar and a plagiarist. Just ignore all that, because obviously DEI is more important than actual, the quality of someone's character versus their skin color. The second example she brought up, I don't even know who that is or what the reference is. So if somebody in the chat heard that and knows who she's talking about, then, but even then, I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Yeah, and if I could add, it's in the vested interest of corporations to not be fools about.
Okay, to not be fools about what?
About getting the talent they need. And the demographics that we all have touted for all this time are not changing because of the Supreme Court ruling.
The demographics we have touted are not changing because of the Supreme Court ruling. I suppose that's correct. I can't wait to hear where this goes. Thank you, Chicago Mike, again. DEI is responsible for electing Tiffany Henyard as mayor of Dalton, Illinois. Oh, yeah. Mayor Henyard. Boy, oh, boy. Let's see. Nate the Lawyer and Actual Justice Warrior on YouTube. They've done a pretty good job covering her saga. If you're curious about corruption and DEI results, check out. Just look up, Nate the Lawyer and Actual Justice Warrior and Tiffany Henyard. Boy, oh boy. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Yeah, she's something else. And also from Illinois, where Chicago is located. And Chicago Mike, ostensibly, comes from, even though Chicago Mike, I think, is in Florida or something. I forget now.
The demographics are the demographics. It's inevitable.
What's inevitable? What is inevitable?
Half of millennials and even more than half of millennials are young people of color. That is the future workforce, whether you like it or like. That's the future student body, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, but are we going to base our hiring decisions on aesthetics or on merit? That's gotten... Tell you what, let's say all the demographics switch, okay, and white people are in the minority. On what basis is a business best advised to make selections in hiring? On aesthetics or on merit? It doesn't. The demographic split does not change the equation of smart hiring practices. And the demographic split does not make DEI a good thing, no matter how much you try to do so. It just doesn't. Again, listen to this guy do mental gymnastics around the block to continue to justify what he's doing.
And the companies that sort of, universities and companies that succumb to fear, oh, we better not widen the talent pool.
You're not talking about widening the talent pool. You're talking about discriminating who gets a job on the basis of their look.
Guess what? They're going to have a much more limited talent pool, and they're going to lose out.
How do you define talent? I think that's what this resolves down to. How do you define talent? Because so far, talent equals aesthetic. Talent equals demographic. Think about that for a second. Outside of your bubble, what are the implications of that philosophy?
Right? And same with consumer goods. If they're not paying attention to the diversity of the consumers who buy houses, go on vacation, need insurance, go to hotels, right? Need, ballpoint pens, whatever the case may be, they're going to lose out.
What does the function of a ballpoint pen have to do with the skin color of the person designing it? I mean, you must have an answer to that. That is the basis for your complaint here, right?
And so Mark Cuban says famously,
Mark Cuban? Oh, no, it's true. Mark Cuban has been a rah-rah cheerleader for DEI, most notably on Twitter over the last several weeks. But he's been taken down a peg or seven by people who have some common sense, like Christopher Rufo, amongst others. But, okay, tell us what the wisdom of Mark Cuban.
You can call me woke all you want, but there goes my customer.
You can call me woke all you want, but there goes my customer.
Right? And the other thing he said is, and to the critics of all this diversity thing, he says, well, can you explain to me why the companies that have stayed the course in diversity, equity, and inclusion are the ones that are performing better profitably and financially?
Well, I don't know. Why do their budgets keep being cut then? If that were true, if it was demonstrably true that a DEI initiative immediately and directly increases profits across the board, why are you guys on that stage having to make these arguments? Why do you sound nervous? Why do you sound shaky in making these justifications? If it was so obvious, then why are you in trouble? Okay, I think I've gone the distance on this one, and I've reached the general terminus of my usual timeline on these things. I just grabbed this one randomly. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't think about it too hard. I'll take a minute or two here for your guys' comments, and then I think I should probably go to bed. It's way past my bedtime. Anthem Ward. So this is a good thing. I was told the other day, and I kind of have to agree with it, white demographic replacement is because they are the most violent, scary people on the entire planet. You just have to look at history. White people took over the planet, multiple times committed horrible atrocities, but then ended slavery. Yeah, the contradictions, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, a business will thrive if the people in the business know what they are doing. And knowing what you are doing is not dependent on skin color. It's not dependent on ethnicity. It's not dependent on gender. But yet we have 4 people on this stage that are trying to convince us the opposite. More so probably trying to convince themselves the opposite. So on the one hand, A, they still have their careers, and B, they try to avoid the inevitable reality that they have been doing wrong by people their entire careers. They are the enemy they think that they are fighting. That's probably the worst part. That's probably a realization most people would not want to have to admit to. Right? I mean, imagine if you went your entire life doing a particular thing and thinking you were doing the right thing the entire time, and then one day, incontrovertible proof was put before you that what you've been doing for your entire life, your entire career, that you spent so much energy, time, money, education on, was demonstrably bad. Not bad as in quality, like bad for society, bad for people, was actually running counter to everything you've been saying the entire time. How would you react? What would your ego do to try to survive that revelation? Would it double down in order to not see yourself as a villain and as a bad person? Or would it just, have to face up to the facts? And you'd have to have a mea culpa moment to your entire life and everyone around you. Which would be a more desirable outcome, right? Continuing to see yourself as the hero or having to confess to being a villain. It's a classic dilemma, isn't it? Classic dilemma. But with that, everybody, before my voice runs out and my inebriated brain finally conks out for the evening, I want to thank everybody for I'm happily surprised and very flattered that everybody decided to show up for a little bit and say hello tonight on a surprise stream. Squizzles McCornish, Scribe doesn't need sleep. He needs Noir Bar. Well, if Noir Bar is a comfy mattress on which to sleep, then perhaps that's so. But with that, everybody, programming note, first and foremost, I have a relatively new scripted video on my channel talking about, if you can believe it, DEI practices, but this time in a little town in Texas, and with their happy and friendly and smiley sales pitches on things that are as bad there as they are on this panel. It's called To Live and DEI in Louisville. So if you haven't already seen that, please take a look. And if you are able to, please share it around. I'd like to see if I can get that one around a bit. I don't know. It's the first scripted video I've done in a while, and I'm a little proud of it. Yeah, pride, it's a sin, but I'm happy to have it. Beyond that, remember that the Sunday stream will be on Sunday, if you can believe it, at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, here on this channel, Sunday morning. And conceivably, I'm still trying to get confirmation on this. Conceivably, Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, I will appear on the Midnight's Edge After Dark channel talking about our top 5 something movies. It might be war movies. I don't know exactly what it is yet. We're still trying to figure out what the topic will be. But either way, we'll talk about movies and nerd out on movies at Midnight's Edge After Dark at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. But beyond that, everybody, thank you, everyone, for joining me on this ambush stream. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the GoFundMe's pinned to the top of the chat box. Blah, blah. Thank you so much for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. Everyone, hope you enjoy the rest of what remains of a Friday evening. Granted, you're in a time zone where it's still Friday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please do get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.